Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Curious Faith, questions and conversations for those who are thinking about following Jesus. Again, I'm your host, Bill Wallace, and I'm super excited about our conversation today because between the four of us, I think our average age is about 25, 26. And that's the first time I've been able to say that in a really long time. So that's very cool. I've got some friends who I've actually known for a long time, and so glad they're able to join us for today's conversation. I'll let them actually introduce themselves to begin with. You can see we're still in the time of quarantine and COVID, and that actually is part of this conversation as well in terms of everything that's kind of going on. But we'll just let them say hi, and you guys can get to know them a little bit. So we'll begin with Sierra. You want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Sierra Tucker. I am a sophomore at Western Washington University. I'm majoring in history and education. I have known Bill since I was in 8th grade when he was my choreographer for one of the first musicals I was ever in. And since then, I've worked with him as a mentor, and I've learned from him as a director, and he's a pretty cool dude.
Thanks. I'm so glad you brought up the choreography part. That was
very important to me.
Perfect. Steven, I haven't taught you choreography, have I?
Can't say we've done that in our meeting. My name is Stephen Price. I'm currently a freshman at Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Massachusetts, and I'm majoring in computer science. I've known Bill for not actually sure how long. My older brother swam with his son, and so I met him at pools here and there, but I've been working with Bill since freshman year of high school, running the website and their YouTube channel. I think that about sums it up.
Perfect. That's great. Yeah, it is actually funny to think of all the conversations we've had at pools all randomly throughout Western Washington. That's pretty accurate. Hannah, go ahead and share.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I go to Pacific Lutheran University, where PB actually went. I'm getting a degree in kinesiology with a K through 12 health and physical education certification for teaching. So, I'm currently his youth director for Hope Church, and
Perfect. That's awesome. And thanks. So we're focusing a little bit on some college age stuff here today. Really, really thankful for all three for joining in, for staying up. I'm sure well past your bedtimes, right? Yeah. I think it's 8 o'clock or so.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Lights out.
That's right. I know. Done. Typical college. Actually, would love for you just to jump in. I think one of the great things about college is you guys generally truly do have great, unique ideas, and have some really cool things to share and to add. So I would love to know if you could start a Christmas tradition. You get to be the starter of a new Christmas tradition. What would that tradition be? What would you love to see happen from a Christmas standpoint from here on out? Go ahead and jump in.
Like at our schools?
No, just for all of the world. They all now get to be doing this new Christmas tradition.
We implement Buddy's diet from the movie Elf.
That was way more creative than anything I thought of. Yeah, that was great. I don't want to follow that. It's a tradition my family does, but I think everyone should do it. We always open up like a present that's a pair of pajamas on Christmas Eve, and then we all have our really cringy matching pajama picture that my mom forces us to take, and then we go to bed. I think that as cringy as the photos always are, they're a good memory to have, and it is fun to look back on.
Oh, that's nice. I like that.
My family has a tradition, and I guess it's not really like a especially unique thing, but every Christmas morning we all get up and like make breakfast together. I think that's a really like fun bonding thing, even though like only two of us can actually cook. It ends up being really fun, and then we have food to eat afterwards, which is, always good.
Upside all around. Now, see, you say that, but if we go back to Stevens, like just about anybody can cook the elf meal as well, right? I mean, you just gotta.
Low time requirement.
That's right. Perfect. I love them. Thank you. Today's conversation that I wanted to dive into was, is there room for faith at college? And thank you, yeah, again for joining in on that. College has been just a few years away for me, so I have some fond memories of it. As Hannah said, I went to PLU. It's still there, still going strong.
Oh yeah.
I
Hasn't been
met my
updated
wife
since.
there. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I met my wife there, Sarah. So I'll honestly say that was absolutely the highlight of college for me. Like, yay, way to go, PLU. From that standpoint. But it's funny. College, I think, for a lot of years now, has been this place that there are a lot of ideas and cliches about faith at college. Whether or not kids have faith at college, parents, people my age are terrified about what's going to happen to their kids when they go to college. They're going to get turned into some, probably a free thinking person, as opposed to the pre-programmed child that we really tried to raise you as the entire time. And so yeah, I just thought it'd be really fun to talk with people at both different stages of college, and also all kind of just in a really, really weird college year as well. To look at that, overarching question. There's a lot that goes on for college kids. There's a lot of changes. There's a lot of challenges this year, as much as any. Is there room for faith in the midst of all of that other stuff? So I thought that'd be a fun conversation, and I'm really, really glad the three of you are willing to talk about that with me. So actually, even just from maybe from a background standpoint, maybe that'll jump us into that. If you were to be honest about faith for you growing up, did you have it? Was it strong? Was it weak? Where was that before you kind of jumped into the college experience? Do you want to share any of that for you?
Yeah, I can kick it off. As you know, Bill, like you said, I've known Bill since I was 3. He was actually my pastor growing up, and just one of the only people I remember from my childhood at church. I mean, when you think about those memories where you can only remember the people there, definitely I was very religious growing up, went to church every Sunday, participated in all the youth events. And I think that really developed who I was. Definitely come beginning of high school, I went through some stuff, and it was just, my church group was my consistent group who I had there. And PB was always somebody consistent in my life. And it was just one of the many consistent things I always had to turn to. And so for me, I grew up in that Christian lifestyle, just sort of went by what we believed, went to church every Sunday, practiced that throughout the week. And yeah, I think it was senior year of high school. That was the year I started to distance from youth events. And I think almost every senior in high school, which now looking back, my seniors in high school, in my youth group even, that's the sort of time in their life where they're starting to get more freedom, and I was starting to get more freedom or more independence, and you're getting more busy and realizing that you have to be independent really soon. And so it's kind of this awkward stage where you're trying to juggle all this, and faith was the one thing that I had a hard time juggling, actually. And that was just something I remember. Kendall, my youth leader at the time, she was always texting me, calling me, are you going to come to youth group tonight? Are you coming to youth group tonight? I'll pick you up. I'll drive you there. You're coming to youth group. She would literally show up at my house and drive me there because I was like, oh, I just have so much homework or whatnot. And I just think that there's always an excuse not to that year, but I'm really glad that I found my way back. Not that I left my faith or anything, but it just wasn't at the forefront of who I was as it used to be. And so definitely that's something I've struggled with through college, but that's sort of my experience with religion growing up, at least.
See, I'd say, oh, sorry, Sarah,
You're good. You're good.
I'd say I kind of had the opposite experience growing up. I grew up in a Christian church. I went to church every week because it was kind of what I was told to do. But as you know, Bill, I'm not doing very well at doing what I'm told to do. And so I kind of just started questioning it more and more. And then by 13, I'd say was atheist and against the church. And then due to complications within academic systems with what was going on at my local public school, I ended up at Catholic school for high school. Didn't help my faith well. We had a lot of theology teachers that were not good at teaching what they're supposed to. And even most of my friends who'd been Catholic their whole life had like, yeah, this teacher's making me less religious. And so in all of those experiences, it kind of just made me less and less close to religion from an organized perspective. Like, I still don't disagree with the teachings of like the Bible or Jesus, but in the organized church perspective, just kind of distance myself from that, I'd say.
So for me personally, I also grew up in the church. We went to church every Sunday. We even went on Wednesday nights. When I got into the youth group, I participated in all the youth events, went to youth rallies, did devos, everything like that. And then my junior year, the youth pastor that I'd always had left. He left the church. Not to like leave the church, like he's not Christian anymore, but he wanted to do something that he felt was more impactful. So he became a police officer.
Wow.
And that was really hard because at our church, it's mostly old people. Nothing against old people, but they don't really know how
we're
to.
great.
Good catch there.
They don't really know how to connect with teenagers. And he was one of the few people at our church who did a really good job at like connecting with us. And so once he left, it was really hard for me to like stay connected to all of that. And so I just kind of started drifting away, and it was really hard for me to find my way back because at that point we had no youth minister for like a whole year, and we just got one like at the end of my senior year when I was about to like move away. And I didn't really connect with him because I didn't have much time. And so while I've been in college, I've had the opportunity to come home and go to church with my family, but I just don't feel connected to like the church that I've gone to since I was a baby anymore. Because all of my friends moved away to go to different colleges. They went to like Harding and York and stuff like that. And I just don't see them anymore. And it's been really hard to like stay connected to that. Not just because like I'm going to college, because everything's changed so much. And it's hard to stay connected to something that you don't find any like similarities in. And then also the church that I grew up in is very old-fashioned, very conservative. They are not great when it comes to accepting new people. And so it's hard to find my place in there as someone who tends to be really accepting and tries to, love everyone no matter what. And it's really hard when there's people at the church who aren't like that. And it's the church that I've always gone to, so can't really step away from it.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, there's so much good stuff there and so many tangents that I want to go on now, and I don't know which one to do first. But maybe we'll start with that last one first. Again, stereotype I think for college would be that most of you are young, liberal, and would not find much joy, excitement, connection with a quote unquote old-fashioned church. Kind of old-fashioned thinking, all those things like that. Truth to that, less truth to that. How does that land with y'all from that standpoint?
I honestly think it depends on the church, obviously, because there's a lot of churches that are very old-fashioned, obviously, but there are some who are growing. And there's a lot of churches that have a really large youth population at their church. Like my brother and his wife go to a church that has like a lot of like young adults their age, and they are very like openly accepting of everyone. And it's easy to like find yourself there and see yourself there when you can see all of the people that you love there. You don't look at the church and say, oh, this person that I love wouldn't be accepted here. But then there are also churches that are like mine, that you just like, I can think of plenty of my friends who, if I ever tried to bring them there, it would be weird for them, and it'd be weird for the people there too. And so I think it just depends on the individual churches and how they treat and teach the people who go there.
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely situational based on which church you go to. Obviously, Bill, coming from your church, we open door policy. I mean, it's very much like, hey, we don't care what you look like, who you love, what you're gonna be today, what you're gonna be tomorrow. Like, just come as you are and be who you are, like the raw, honest version of yourself. And I think that growing up, learning that and hearing that in a church standpoint, I think a lot of the time I didn't really realize that there was like, I mean, I knew there was like conservative churches and old-fashioned churches, but I had never like truly experience that to the extent of fully knowing what that was like. I mean, the church that I went to when I was younger, which Bill used to work at that one, but we don't go to that one anymore. But that one, I mean, even I don't have memories of it being very conservative, but I've heard stories from my mother because she understood things that I didn't when I was 7 or whatnot. But I mean, it's just interesting now because, my eyes kind of been open to it now that I'm in a standpoint where I see, when I'm at college, it's actually interesting because like being religious at a Christian college is actually very rare. It's pretty rare. I mean, there's a very small group of people I know are religious or faithful or whatever you want to specify it as. And so it's actually quite interesting because, when somebody hears that you believe in God, you're religious, you're Christian, the first thought that they always come to or they ask me about is like, oh, well, are you this and that? Does your church won't like me, your church won't accept me? And I'm like, oh my gosh, come meet my pastor. Like, he's the funniest, weirdest dude. Like, he will like you. Like, and it's just funny because growing up, not knowing that there was that side of it, like now it's just completely eye-opening. And that's something I've actually like seen a lot at college now and heard a lot more about. And, people just having that stereotype of what being faithful or being religious looks like. And especially in the political climate we're in, it's just like, I feel like that's kind of the connotation that comes along with it. And especially at college, which is such a liberal political place to be in, everyone's conversing and talking and sharing opinions. And it's just interesting because, I mean, I've definitely found that, like people, they just assume that your church won't accept them. They assume your church won't like them. And it's kind of sad that that's come to that, but it's definitely, they have valid points, but it's just like, some of the old fashioned churches I would be just as mad at. So it's definitely eye-opening for sure.
I'd say I can kind of touch on that one from both perspectives because my family was at a church like that where there was basically such a huge divide within the church that we had two different services. One that was like the more old fashioned where there's like a choir and gowns. And then the second one directly after was with like people with electric music and electric guitar, someone singing. And you could literally see the difference in ages from both services. And so it was interesting in being able to see that divide. And then it led to the administration was making decisions on political issues and marriage and who was allowed to be married in the church, which actually led to, I don't know, I think they lost about half their congregation, which they then went searching for collectively a new church. And then they sued to see who could get the building. And it was this huge, big thing. So that's how my family ended up going to church with Bill as a more accepting one. But I'd say that I could see definitely how the effects people feel and also what happens in that time where people feel like they're not being heard or they're actively being discriminated against. And so it makes sense how some people lose faith in religion or think that it's not accepting to their current political or personal beliefs, and not that status isn't the right word. I'll go who they are.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I'm so glad we're doing this. Oh my gosh, this is so fascinating to hear from your perspective, especially all your stories. Because again, I do know you. I know a little bit of all your stories, but to hear you talk about it, share it is so interesting. Again, my mind is just racing. Just from a college standpoint, something you said, Hannah, there. Again, the stereotype, the idea is that most kids at college probably aren't. And even that, again, I'm not sure I want to use the word religious, living out their faith. There's a lot of different ways that we could define that. But you all go to very different colleges too, which is one of the reasons why I'm glad you're all here. Stephen, you're out on the East Coast. Hannah, you're at a quote unquote Christian college. And Sierra, you're more at like a large kind of state institution, more type of thing. Do you see kind of a majority of kids that would consider themselves searching for faith, looking for faith, active in faith? Not at all. Minority? What?
The thing I would say on that one is that as going to a STEM school, we've definitely hit the stereotype of a lot of the science people aren't into religion. Like, I would say that the majority of my friends at some point or other were involved with a church and renounced their faith at some point. And when I say majority, almost all of them. The exception to that would be there's a large Jewish community where I'm currently attending school. And so there are people who follow all Jewish traditions, they follow Jewish law and Jewish holidays. However, even then, they follow that more as a family tradition than actually a connection with the religion.
Sure.
So, and I'm sure Hannah going to a Christian school where there's more of that, maybe not to the extent some people believe, but we definitely, like, there's not a church on our campus. I don't think there's even one within half a mile.
Oof.
So I'd say we definitely hit the stereotype for STEM schools not having it.
Excellent. So all these parents listed are like crossing those off their list now. No.
School. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And that's interesting. Well, it's definitely interesting you bring up how, it's hard to define, are they searching for faith or are they religious? Because that's literally a conversation that I had just a few months ago with some of my friends at school. It's so interesting because a lot of my friends won't define themselves as religious. There's actually a pretty big Catholic base of students on our campus. Actually, I think that would probably be the most popular based religion, Catholic. But it's interesting because I've had friends who say, I'm not religious. But we've had conversations about believing in God and what our faith has looked like. And, it's like we have very similar ideas and very similar, like tendencies or practices. And they're just like, I'm not religious. I'm faithful. Like it's interesting because there's a difference to them. And I think it's because when you're at college, you're trying to like figure out, you don't have to go to Sunday church with your mom every week. When you're not quote unquote forced to do these things, or expected to do these things, it's kind of like you're trying to find your own footing and find what path you're on. But yeah, definitely. We have a church on campus that nobody goes to. We have a church right across the street that nobody goes to. And there's a church on the other side of the street that nobody goes to. When I was a freshman, I swore I was like, I'm going to go once a month at least. I've never walked inside that building, to be honest. And there's just, it is what it is. But I mean, I would still consider myself to be religious and practicing my faith. But it's really interesting because a lot of people on campus have resonated with faith and they believe in God and they have a relationship with God, but they won't classify themselves as religious. So it's interesting.
Wow. Yeah, that church that no one goes to there at PLU. Yeah, I went to that. Yeah,
I'm sure it's great. No, it looked really nice.
The one, Bill.
It's just so early. It's my weekend. I'm tired.
I know. Oh my gosh. That's so good. That's so fantastic. I love everything about what you guys are saying. All right. So yeah, if either a church or even just, as individuals, and I do, you guys actually know me, I've got kids both in that age range, in your age range right now. Kids coming into that age range. But even more than that, like the fact that honestly, I would consider the three of you to be my friends. Like I like building relationships with people your age. I just think you give me hope for the world. If someone like me wants to try and encourage faith-based conversations, encourage you to continue to be honest and explore faith in some format in college. How would we do that? Can we do that? Is that something that we can do from afar? That we can encourage when you're back home, when all this is going on? Does that make sense? Like, how can we be supportive without being typical overbearing parents?
So from my experience with it, when I moved back home because Western closed.
Yay, COVID.
Yay. I was really grateful to be able to come back home because, I like my family. But the thing that I was most worried about is that, now I was permanently home. They were going to make me go to church. They were going to make me get up in the morning and go to church. And I was like, no, I don't want to get up in the morning on my weekends. I don't have to go to class. But then like everything changed and now our church is online, which is weird. And it's been strange transitioning to that, but the best way that at least my mom has gotten me to like talk about, how my faith was working when I was at college is she just, brought it up. She said, basically along the lines of like, how are you feeling about being online with church? And then we just had an open conversation about it. And she wasn't like, oh, I wish you'd wake up earlier to come to church. I wish you wouldn't wake up 5 minutes before church started. And I wish you wouldn't come downstairs in your pajamas and, fall asleep halfway through service. And she was just like, yeah, I get it. It's really hard to be, actively pursuing that kind of thing when you have so much more going on in your life. And I think it's just really important for, people who are trying to talk to college age, high school age kids about being more active in their faith is that you have to be open with them and let them like speak their mind. And when they do, and if you disagree with them, you have to just be like, okay, this is how I feel. This is how they feel. They're in a completely different part of their life than I am, because I am not a 45-year-old woman. And my mom is not a 19-year-old going through college. And so we have different experiences. I think it's really important to like understand each other's experiences when you talk to them about that kind of thing.
Honestly, I agree with that one too, of like the differences of experiences. And the advice I would give is focus more on the ideology of it instead of the actual structure of like whether or not you're going to church at 9 a.m. on Sundays, or if you're watching it at 1:30 when you wake up, if you sleep in. Because like, as you know, Bill, you and I both have very different views on religion, I would say, but we've had very extensive conversations in coffee shops about morals and faith and stuff. And I would say that like the word church or religion itself can be a turnoff to people in college, but a lot of people have a lot of opinions on like how you should treat others, like the golden rule, for example. Most people in college agree with that. And so it's going more on the actual practice and beliefs of like how to treat others and stuff like that, instead of the structure of religion or sitting in the chair for an hour or singing with the group at the specific time.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far. One of my friends who, like I said, she was the one I was talking about, who doesn't classify as religious, but she, has a relationship with God. For her religion class, we have to take religion at our school. I don't know. I'm assuming your schools you don't have to, but we have to take religion courses. And you can take any religion. It doesn't have to be, the religion that PLU chooses to follow or is affiliated with. You can really take any. I took medieval Christianity, and that was actually quite interesting. It was really informative. I enjoyed it a lot. But my friend, like I said, she grew up Catholic, and she took this Christian course. It was just sort of I understood everything she was saying because that's what I practiced growing up. And she told me that she went to this, this is pre-COVID, they went on this field trip, and it was like this young life type service. It was, it was structured towards young adults. It was young adult crowd. And she was like, Hannah, they were playing rock music. And I was like, what? Like, okay. And she was like, Hannah, like, no, they were playing rock music. And they were like, there was lights everywhere. And she was like, there was like strobe lights. I was like, okay, yeah. It was like a mud retreat for me. That's like, like that's a, okay. Like, but she was like, she had never seen like, I don't want to say like modern Christianity, but it's like this kind of modern structure version of faith that is like targeted towards like young adults. And she was just like fascinated. And she was like, it was so cool. She was like, she was like, that message, they were directly talking to me that day. And, like she said, all of her friends were saying the same thing. And I'm like, okay, well, that is very rare that every single one of you needed that same exact message that day. But it was because that experience that was made had gone from this traditional thing that they expected into something completely new and different. And I think I'm finding that as a youth leader, even like change is exciting for people who are learning about faith. It really is. It's not, you grow up hearing one thing and believing one thing or only being told this one thing. And when you can change it and make it fun and make it exciting, I think that that's what draws people in. And I've had so many conversations with friends about, that someone on that same field trip with her, and they aren't religious at all. They don't even believe in God. And they were like, wow, like my eyes were open. Even if, there isn't a God, they were like, somebody was talking to me today. I don't know who or what, but so I think that was just like showing people that there isn't this traditional, just beating you down with church every single day. It's this, there's change and there's different ways to do church. Like you were saying, you can wake up at 1:30 and watch it on your computer now, or whatever the case is. But I think just finding that change and keeping it exciting really draws people in.
See, to provide contrast to that of what happens when you do it poorly, my junior year, our theology teacher gave us an assignment where we had to take a field trip to St. James Cathedral to watch Mozart's Requiem performed in Latin for 3 hours and then write a 15-page paper on it. I have never seen a single person like that. Like literally the 112 kids of the junior class, all of us hated it, and it is still referred to as terrible to this day. And so you could have a nice retreat where everyone says that was impactful, or you could turn the entire grade against religion.
Man, that's so good.
He also put people in like different chairs around the church to take photos of us if we fell asleep.
Oh my God.
So like multiple kids failed the assignment for falling asleep. Other kids just left and failed the assignment. There was like 20% of the class failed the assignment for one reason or the other.
That's solid. Excellent. Good. Well, I worry so much about the future of the church. Yeah, a lot going on there. One, yeah, I really am sorry I didn't spend more time with your theology teachers at school, Stephen. Two, I had something you said totally sparked something for me. By far, I think one of my biggest concerns in terms of conversations and encouraging conversations, and whatever we might do, is that there is authenticity from my standpoint within that. I think another stereotype that I think is true is that typically I would say high schoolers and college kids have some of the best BS detectors. You just do that super, super well. And I don't know if we have them quite as much as when we get older, we just get slow and dull. But that's always my concern, is that when I try to engage with people significantly younger than me at this point in my life, is there an authenticity level that I'm still hitting when I talk about stuff, hoping that it connects, hoping that it matters. I don't think I'm wrong, right? You guys can sniff that stuff out, particularly when it comes from churches, more than anything else.
Oh yeah. I think with that, I mean, one of the things that I've noticed when talking about my own faith with adults or whatnot, it always comes back to, oh, when I was your age, and then it's some big story about when they were growing up. And not that I don't want to hear the story, but, I think that a great way to keep that authenticity and that genuinity alive is to like what you're going through right now, not always reflecting back on when I was 20 or when I was 25 or, because you're at a different point in your life. Like Sierra was saying, we're all at different places in our life, and it's okay to relate the two without having to act like we know what's happening in that exact situation. Oh, well, when I went to college, okay, well, when you went to college 30 years ago, we didn't have this problem, you know what I mean? And like, not to be rude or anything, but I think that one way you can keep it very genuine is to like talk to like young adults as if you would talk to older adults. I mean, just very straight on. This is, if you want to have that connection, it's not relating back to what you did when you were their age, but what you're going through right now, what they're saying, how that affects you right now, and how, vice versa. And I think that swapping that story, and I mean, you can talk about your past. I'm not saying we don't want to hear it, but no, not at all. But I just think that a lot of time when I talk to adults, it's almost like I'm being talked down to, like, it's like my mom telling, like, not my mom, but when some woman adult talks to me, I'm like, you're not my mother. Like, when it comes to that sort of topic. But I think just like keeping it very real and very like what's happening in your life right now is a great start.
I think it's also really important to like not rely on stereotypes about college students. Like some of them are obviously correct. Like, yeah, a lot of us can tell when people aren't being genuine with us. But I think that like when I first said that I was going to go to Western, a lot of the people at my church who felt like they had they were allowed to make comments about my decisions in life just because they'd known me since I was a baby. They were like, "Oh, you're going to Western? Oh, you're going to turn into a weed smoking hippie." Because I feel like that's generally people's view of Western. It's probably like the second most liberal college in Washington State, and that's what all of them thought. They were like, "Oh, you're going to turn away from, you're going to become an atheist." And I didn't. I don't smoke weed. I don't do anything of like the typical college student stuff. And yeah, that does happen at Western. But I think that the fact that they saw Western as like that kind of school really like pushed me away from talking to them about it. And especially after I started going there, I kind of expected it to just be like, oh yeah, there's probably going to be a lot of like weed smoking hippies on campus. But I was legitimately surprised to see like at least twice a week there was like a Christian youth group out in Red Square, like playing Christian music and offering hot cocoa to people and just like inviting them to come hang out with them. And then my roommate my freshman year was Catholic, and there was like a big Catholic group on campus that like invited her to come to church with them, and they would have church like in the Performing Arts Center at school. And there was even like a Jewish mental health center like 10 minutes away from my dorm. And there was like a lot more religion on campus than I was expecting. And I think that if we didn't have these stereotypes about like where kids go to college and what college students are like, I think it'd be easier to have like faith-based conversations with them and just treat them as people, people who may or may not have faith.
The other thing I would say on this one is that from like an adult talking to a child's perspective, like try and show that when you were growing up and you didn't always have perfect things either. Because like a lot of the stories you hear from adults, like, oh, like I did this and this, I was the perfect child, and just gloss over like some of the trials they had in their own lives. And one of the most memorable stories I have that you told me, Bill, was when you were in seminary school and you had to write like the opinion-based essay that the professor failed you on, and you had to go talk to him and say like, hey, like it was an opinion-based essay and I told you my opinion, you can't mark me down for this. And so that's something that's resonated with me, of showing like how you've struggled and not always followed the letter to the T.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up too. I appreciate that.
Was that something not supposed to be mentioned?
No, it's good actually.
Hey, remember that one time you failed?
Remember that one time? Spot on accurate though.
The story he got a good grade, so I thought it was fun.
Yeah, only because I really got in the face of my professor, which you're right that that was it. That to do exactly what you said don't do. They had I remember that, I remember being that 25-year-old who had to go into my professor, who's 50, 55 and has so much control over me, and to call him out and be like, dude, you were wrong on this. And I'm going to tell you about it. That was nutty. This has been super interesting. Thank you so much. I think we're about out of time. But I've learned an enormous amount. And again, I know you all, and I've learned so much. I really, really look forward to other people getting a chance to hear some of your stories and seeing what they can learn from it as well. Was there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to throw out there? I wanted to make sure got shared. Anything at all? All good. Perfect. Fantastic. Awesome. Well, again, thanks. This has been really cool. I'm sorry that you're all going to college during COVID. What a lousy time. But it's allowed, some things like this to happen, and a chance to see some of you a little bit more. And for that, again, I'm really thankful personally. So that's very, very cool. That's it for now. Thanks to everyone who was either watching or was listening. Please make sure you come back and join us next week. I'm not sure if we'll still be on Zoom or if we'll be out of quarantine yet, and we can do one of these live and in person. These three were great. If they stick around in this neck of the woods, maybe we can get them back on here at some point too, and have some more conversations like this. That was a ton of fun. And until then, well, we'll see you next time. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching.